I only met Jem Doulton a couple of months ago and have had the real privilege of watching him play, several times with the Au Pairs whilst they've been out on tour supporting the Skids and also doing their own headline shows. Jem's predominantly a percussionist and drummer if you don't know him, but he's also partial to the odd bit of crooning now and again.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
thanks.
Uh, get, getting together a list of his bands, projects, and all that, and all that good stuff is where my research gets dodgy. But fuck it, here we go with probably what's a partial list. But we've got Thurston Moore, the Au Pairs, obviously, Heckle Chamber, Grimm Grimm, the DNA Test, Melos Kalpa, Pando Pando, to name but a few. I thought putting out a podcast once a week was pretty prolific, so that'll teach me. As well as and Jem, as well as recording a bunch of solo records, the latter of which was 2024's hugely imaginative and kaleidoscopic deal of the century. And I think the collaborators on these releases show the esteem in which Jem is held, not just as a musician but also as a person. So here's the interesting change in music, at least from where I sit. The idea of multiple collaborations, if you want to call it that, have perhaps become, the default way to survive in music these days. It feels like it's way more common these days to find musicians working on several projects and often diverse projects. I don't know if this sort of self-development buzzword of multi-hyphenate, as it applies to doing a few different things in addition to your core job, originated from the music biz. But whatever, it feels like this kind of profile is a real sort of feature of the way that that many more of us are living now. Anyway, enough of my usual sort of verbal diarrhea at the start. I'll move swiftly on and say a very good afternoon to Jem Doulton. Jem, welcome. Good to see you, man.
Thank you, Giles. Good to see you too. Not in the van for once.
Not in the fan for once.
So yeah. But also on the other side of the screen, which is
I
actually
know.
this is a first.
This is a first, isn't it? It's kind of weird
Yeah,
sort of doing it this way around. Actually,
yeah,
I think probably for most people that have been on my podcast, I've never met them, in kind of real life. Certainly before I've done a few that I have. So this is one of the exception rather than the rule, I'd say.
yeah. Okay. Well, I feel privileged to be an exception, uh, even in this sense. Yeah.
So I
No,
guess
I
we've
mean,
got to, yeah, go on.
I know. I mean, your intro yeah. I mean, it is interesting that. I mean, I would say. I kind of have always been sort of doing quite a few different things, and I always
Mm,
get a bit if I feel a bit stuck if I sort of have too few things going on.
mm,
But I do definitely agree that more and more it is the case that musicians, in order to survive, have to sort of spread out and aren't
mm,
able to just sort of fixate on any one thing, unless you're incredibly sort of lucky or manufactured by the industry, and that's obviously a big
yes.
topic. And
Yeah.
the industry, I don't really think is that interested in music as such. I think
Mm,
it's whereas it kind of used to be sort of up for supporting potential good music bands and
yeah.
projects, artists, and all these things, and they did
Mm,
development deals and all those kind of things. Gone are those days, and obviously it's really yeah, it's sort of more because it's more geared towards, say, a figure who may be able to sell various other things which
yeah.
aren't music. You have like you don't have the money there backing any sort of music. There's people don't buy records, right? So
Mm,
you need somebody, I guess. I mean, no, I'm not going to name any massive artist, but let's say
mm,
massive artist who can sell whichever
yeah.
massive products.
Yeah.
And it's all a bit of a sort of capitalist love in a way.
Yeah.
So if you are just a musician, in order to sort of like make it work, you kind of have to diversify. And I mean, in a way, for me, it's great because I like to play lots of different styles.
Mm,
If I only do the one thing, as I say, I get a bit sort of, I feel frustrated. I wouldn't say I'm
mm,
bored, but I feel sort of like I'm not quite sort of achieving enough
achieving.
for
Yeah.
for me. Uh, And I'd say, yeah, a lot of the musicians I know are sort of also sort of feeling that that's the way forward,
Mm.
to sort of approach it. Um,
It's interesting, isn't it? Sort of on that thinking back to you know any musician that you associate with a band. I don't know. I mean, from I don't know who you take. Kind of John Entwistle from from the Who, for example.
yeah,
Like that was his identity, if you will.
yeah,
And now it feels, and I wonder when that, what you're saying about how your kind of mindset of I need to be doing different things. That's what I kind of really love. Whether that was even possible, going back, I don't know, like even 20 years.
yeah. I mean, I
I don't
yeah.
know.
It it's kind of it's hard to know. I mean, I guess probably having watched relatively recently the Becoming Led Zeppelin documentary,
Mm,
maybe you think of Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones. They both were session players, right? They did a lot
yeah,
of recordings, but then
yeah,
they really, well, driven by Jimmy Page, he sort of created Zeppelin, and then that becomes their identity, doesn't it? And people don't
yes,
necessarily
yeah,
know Jimmy Page is playing acoustic guitar on Goldfinger and things
mm.
like that, which is kind of cool. Um, but and also John Paul Jones, he comes from a sort of variety show background of his parents and sort of all this sort of traveling thing. And I
Yeah.
kind of feel, and I was talking to Leslie about it recently as well. It's like, in order to survive as a musician, we kind of have come back to that sort of traveling sort of sort of showpiece thing that
Mm,
goes
mm,
around. And it
mm.
does, I mean, it does matter, but it doesn't matter that you play in various different projects
No,
in order
no.
to make that living work.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
matters when it matters is because you want to be doing the things that you actually like.
Yeah, yeah,
And at the moment, I'm privileged enough to say I all the projects I'm in, I actually really like.
yeah,
And it's not always, obviously, always been the case. It's sort of you can get stuck in things doing them for money, and you're like, "What the fuck am I doing?"
yeah.
it's
No,
it's like, oh god, and yeah, yeah, there's quite a lot in what we've just said.
I
Um,
think yeah, there is. I mean, there's a lot about I guess the kind of state of the just our the way that we live our lives. And it was interesting because I did uh, a podcast recently which hasn't come out with Mickey Bereni. We were kind of talking about about how she saw younger kids of maybe, which was a bit of a surprise to me, of maybe kind of early 20s, one almost wanting a kind of a linear kind of career and sort of lifestyle, which did surprise me actually. But thinking about it, the world is very insecure. And somebody at that age, I can completely understand that where the need for some sort of security, and whether that's in sort of career path or relationships, things like that. I don't know. But yeah, it feels like the world just sort of shifts so quickly.
it
Literally
does,
within
yeah.
years, and it change these global things kind of change.
Well, yeah. I mean, take the last few weeks. I mean, that I think the world has markedly changed
Yes, yeah,
since this sort of what I would say is a crazy campaign to bomb
yeah,
the hell out of Iran. But
yeah,
you know, I think that really signifies, but it's been building up to this sort of point, hasn't it? And who
mm,
knows where it
mm,
then goes. As you say, the
yeah,
world is really unstable. So if you are 20, I can imagine you go, okay, this is what I need to do, and this is what I'm gonna keep my head down
yeah,
and actually try and make this one thing work. And
yeah,
maybe it will happen. I would say I'm quite cynical about whether the industry would support any such
mm,
thing. Um, I mean, I did do a session relatively recently, and I don't want to go into the lyrical content of these things, but I did
mm,
sort of feel like this person, if it doesn't work, I worry for them,
yeah,
and it's sort of I worry for how they're going to then approach life, not let alone a life of music. If they
right,
don't get that sort of fame or the thing that they've presume is a security,
Yeah.
the fame, the money, the ability to just buy however many houses you want to do around the
Yeah.
world or whatever. I don't think you necessarily get that security there. But if you then don't achieve this quite um like a grand goal, let's say,
Yeah.
what then happens?
I
Like,
know what
are
you
you
mean.
are you going to be happy? You're not going to be happy doing just a sort of
Yeah.
some other kind of job, right? Um, but then I don't know. It feels like a very strange world in
Mm.
this regard, and it sort of feels like there's a lot of luck. I think there was always luck, but right now you need a lot of luck to
A
sort of
lot of
like
it. Yeah.
suddenly maybe get a person interested
Yeah.
in what you might have to say. So I'm maybe this is a generational thing. I'm about to be 43,
Mm.
which obviously for some people is young, but I think our generation's interesting because we span that sort of beginning of the internet. I grew up without the internet,
Yeah.
and a whole sort of, going to, the people teenagers I teach the drums to and stuff, you talk to them
Mm.
and like, can you just like listen to an album? Like,
Mm.
and I'd
Yes.
spend all my whole
Yeah.
pocket money, going down to HMV on Oxford Street or Virgin Megastore on the corner of that and Tottenham Court Road. And basically my weekend trip was down to those shops to buy CDs, and that
Yeah.
was it. I spent my pocket money on CDs, and then you go home, you take a chance. You take a chance on
Yes.
a
Exactly.
record, and then once you decide that actually you like that thing, you might go and try and take another chance from another person, another thing. Whereas now that just doesn't seem to happen.
No.
Like it's just like, oh, just one song here, one song there, and so the whole idea of sitting down and actually listening as well, like actually listening.
Yeah.
If it's not
I
immediate,
could.
it's sort of like it's kind of gone, and I kind of find that really strange.
It's
Um,
interesting that actually you say that actually because I remember did a I was talking to a band and they said their very first single um there were some publications that wouldn't review it
yeah,
because the intro was like about 1 minute 30, before any vocals came in.
sounds great.
I that's what I thought. I said it should be longer.
Yeah, yeah,
Add about another 14 minutes onto it, and then we can start talking.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it's that kind of, people need that almost like a, kind of like a song condensed into of all the best parts of it into the first, I don't know, like 10 seconds or something like that to really kind of grab you.
yeah,
It's just outrageous.
yeah. I mean that is, I would say, tentatively, but I guess my hunch is the money people
Yeah.
sort of saying this is the way it
This is the
ought
way.
to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. Yeah.
This is the way we know we can get people in. But then what it does do is means people's attention spans across the board,
Yeah.
and that tying in with TikTok or
Yeah.
whatever hell else
Which is
is sort of it's kind of nuts.
it's
Um,
kind of insane because like some of the best records have been those that really kind of
yeah,
build up to this kind of finale or some sort of crescendo or something like that. It takes you on that. It sounds like a cliche, doesn't it? That takes you on that kind of journey,
yeah,
through it. But that's kind of part of what music should be in my mind. But I don't know. Obviously, the money people. I think you're right. They need immediacy.
yeah. But they need immediacy, and they can point to the fact that they make money. So
Mm,
as the thing that is of value,
yeah,
to say, well, this is the thing that works. You can
yeah,
actually go, oh, well, this works. There's enough people who are gonna
yeah,
like go for this, and therefore this has to be the only way.
yeah,
Um, I mean, it can be that way. I don't think it shouldn't not be that way. I just think there should be room enough for everything else as well.
mm,
And then you don't want to just like create a monoculture of sort of everything being like excitement, excitement,
yeah.
like a million miles an hour, la 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 la
Dude,
la la, bam, 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 bam. Like it's sort of like, okay, guys, chill out. Can you
just
just
slow
like
down a
take,
bit.
yeah, just slow down. And you're like, slow is good. Like, you know, you don't need flashing lights the whole time. Like, and I think it's kind of this is where we are, right? As
Mm.
as culture, it sort of seems to be this thing, and that's increasingly the case. You have to have a visual element if you're doing anything
Yeah.
slightly off left field, however you want to describe it.
Mm.
And that's a way of getting people sort of a bit more in. So you have a
Mm.
visual thing, and then you can have slightly weirder music in
Yeah.
that respect. And I don't know. I think there's a big quality in being able to say, hey, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit down 40 minutes and listen to one piece of sort of art, music, whatever it might
Yeah.
be, whether it's a symphony or
Yeah.
an album, a pop
Yeah.
album or a rock album,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And you're actually there, wholly your whole attention to that one thing, rather than okay, I'm scrolling at the same time as
Yeah. Yeah.
watching a Netflix film or whatever.
Absolutely.
This
Absolutely.
is a really, I'd say, a really strange time in that
I'm al-
respect.
I'm kind of always interested in, yeah, when you're talking about like listening to an album all the way through, about how it's kind of constructed, not just the kind of the ideas that go into the record, but just the also the running order as well, because there's a thought process behind it. I'm kind of interested in that. So maybe, I mean, let's talk about Deal of the Century, for example, about
Yeah.
the kind of the genesis of that. What was going on that sort of inspired it, and then how you kind of bring it all together. Because I sometimes, like, when I listen to albums all the way through, you get an idea of what's going on, or at least my interpretation of it, of kind of what's going on and what's the thinking is behind how it's all put together, like what determines track one versus what determines track seven, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, quite often you have a starting point, don't you? And then
Mm.
I know, I guess a little bit like this chat now, we have a starting point and we don't know really where it's going to go. I'm sure
Where's it going to go?
you've got a few ideas, but where to guide it. But yeah, with the deal of the century, I mean, the phrase is a Donald Trump phrase, and
Yeah.
it was it's sort of I guess I started the whole process a little bit after like air Brexit and all this kind of crap and the
Yeah.
bullshit that Boris Johnson was sort of
Mm.
you oven ready deals and all this kind of nonsense, and it
Oh God, yeah, that
and
phrase, yes.
yeah, oh man,
Oh God.
and it's been a complete disaster, and especially not just for musicians, but anyone who trades and goes over to Europe regularly.
Yeah.
It's an absolute pain in the ass,
Yeah.
and I still feel quite bad about all the people who voted for it. I think you got conned
Yeah.
ultimately, and it's again for people who are just going to make money.
Yeah.
And I was so shocked and pissed off because not only was it all based on lies, it's sort of then it's really just create like they're trying to create a really negative narrative,
Yeah.
and they're trying to split ideas of communities up. They're trying to
Yes.
face communities off against each other, and
Yeah.
there is a positive way you can look at Britain, which is wow, look, you've got a real melting pot. It's a bloody island.
Yeah.
There was once this quite controversial empire, of which I would embody both parts, the colonized and the colonizers, as a
Yeah.
mixed race North Londoner, and
Mm.
and you can kind of like, okay, you could go, despite all of that stuff, this country just about actually works. People like their
Yeah.
curry, people like all
Yeah.
the different cultures that are there.
Yeah. Yeah.
They like a pork pie,
Yes.
whatever. You can go all the different ways
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
it culturally, and I guess all the lies really sort of went into that phrase when Donald Trump said "deal of the century." He's going to do the deal of the century, which was, I think, in terms of like creating peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Like, well, of
Mm.
course that's happened, right? And
Mm.
and you're just like, it was so you just like it's just the biggest bullshit, and it
Yeah.
made me very angry. But then it's also at
Mm.
the very same time this that all the things like Paddy Ashdown said, you got £350 million lie, you can stick it on the side of the bus, it's still a lie kind of idea. I can't remember the exact words.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
about that's like, yeah, this is the amount of money we could put back into the NHS. That's what Vote
Yeah.
Leave said. Has that happened? No, of course it hasn't happened. It never was going to happen. But for some reason, nobody's been held to account for it. And
Yeah.
then after, you'd say after all that stuff, so I'm going on a political rant here, but like after that point, right? Once they've managed to create the rupture with Europe, now they're just talking like really doubled up on the sort of immigrant thing and like, oh, brown
Mm.
skinned people, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, okay, so once you then get rid of all the brown people and the black people, what's going to happen next? Where do you
Yeah.
go?
Where do you go after that?
Where do
Yeah.
you go after that? And
Yeah.
it just it's so low. It's a really low situation, and unfortunately, they do win. And I guess I did a really sarcastic sort of take on it, which
Yeah.
is questioning, like this idea of British values, land
Mm.
ownership, the monarchy, all
Yeah.
things that people sort of think is tradition, and actually it is just a sort of racket. It's a mafia racket. It's
Yes.
just making
Absolutely.
money left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
And I could be called a commie bastard or socialist
Mm.
wank or whatever. I don't even think I am. I think I'm just sort of like, hey man, can you not just see it for what
Yeah.
it actually is? You
Yeah.
know, I, I don't suppose there'll ever be outright equality. I don't suppose it could even happen, but you could have a slightly more equal society. You could
Yeah.
actually siphon off money from, say, let's say, all the palaces that the monarchy have and
Yeah.
the land that they
I
have and
completely
all the
agree.
aristocracy that have it as
Yeah.
well. And all the money that's generated from all these things could sort of go back into the NHS. You could get your £350 million a week. You could
Yeah.
actually do all these things and have better social sort of security, all these kind of things. But do they do that? No, of course not. So they just double down on the sort of division, and that for me is a distraction. So I guess it
I
started
agree.
then. The COVID sort of happens. I sort
Mm.
of worked on it a lot during that sort of time, and then all these
Mm.
other tunes sort of came whilst obviously basically in a quite sort of strange time, right?
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of
Very.
alone time,
Yeah.
a lot of sort of being in a new thing. But I'm very proud of that work. It is a bit
Yeah.
dark. I understand that. It's not going to be a number one sort of hit
I think it's great. I
album.
love it.
Thanks.
I really
Thanks a
do.
lot.
I really do.
Um,
I
no,
find it like kind of very, yeah, it's just so many different kind of styles, and it's very evocative in some ways, sort of psychedelic, and it's just great. It's just very there's so much that is unpredictable about
yeah,
it. That's what I really love
thanks.
about it. It's like, and that to me is it really kind of keeps you engaged because you really don't know what to kind of expect with it, and I love that.
Great. Well, I hope it also works musically, even if it is unexpected. Sort of
Absolutely, yeah.
that's always the thing
Mm,
to try and do. I play in various different projects and have done in the past
yeah,
where yeah, it can be complicated, but it still needs to work musically. It needs to sort of
yeah,
flow
yeah,
in a way that's not like even if it's unexpected, it still then should still make sense. Do
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
for
mean? It's
sure.
sort of
Yeah, yeah,
and
totally.
those are the sort of hours that you strive to
Yeah,
put in to make sure that it's not just like some real sort of blunt,
just kind of like random stuff. That's
abstract,
yeah,
random
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
It should develop in
yeah.
ways that sort of are interesting.
Was it
And
quite? Was it quite a sort of given the sort of the subject matter? Was it and the time that you were doing this? Was it kind of quite a cathartic process?
yeah, and as I mean, I've done a few solo records. I've done only two as me. It's Jem Doulton. I
Mm.
used to have a alter ego called Mr. Ron Jetson. I killed him
Yes,
off.
yes,
I killed him off, and they. I mean, I guess I've always done a bit social commentary, a bit sort of some social commentary, some sort of like existential sort of angst, especially when I was a bit younger, my mid 20s, and sort of
yeah,
going, "What the fuck?" Um,
yeah, yeah,
which I kind of still am doing, but I guess I'm a little bit more comfortable in my in my own skin. Well, I hope I am anyway. But it's sort of and yeah, and I think there's always been this thing. But when you finish a record, and I've always asked my mate to play the instruments I can't play,
yeah,
which is everything basically apart from drums and keys.
yeah,
I mean, I have a little go at playing guitar just to sort of fill out sounds, but I would never say I could play guitar. It's just like
Yeah.
literally find a chord and
Yeah.
hit your
Just to
and
fill
try
something.
your
Yeah.
best.
Yes.
But all the blowy stuff and all the string stuff, all that kind of stuff. I get my mates to come in and pretty
Mm.
much give them a free rein.
Yeah.
And it is a joy. There's been some great times. Basically, music's quite interesting in that respect. You create these friendships which are really intimate
Yeah.
because you know each other kind of like without language, with
Yes.
a sort of
It's a
in
good
a
point.
sort of more direct kind of way.
Yeah.
And you could maybe you'd say, I mean, it's hard to know really, but maybe you'd say I'd never really hang out with this so and so person if it weren't for music. Maybe our
Yeah.
paths would never really cross, but because music exists, it does. And then you have all the sort of different people sort of creating it and
Yeah.
doing these things. So I feel that's a huge positive. And I say this to the students I teach, when they're feeling a bit shy of getting bands, they're early teenagers, whatever.
Mm.
It's like, no, go see if you've got some friends who play the guitar, any instrument, doesn't matter. Start with a duo, or like it's one of the best ways you can, you make friends. And if you're lucky, you get to travel, you get to go and play shows, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. Good way to earn some money. It's like what's not to like about it. I think that community aspect
It's
is
a really good
really,
point.
it's quite well, it's very beautiful ultimately. So yeah,
I think.
sorry, going back, like when you finish those endeavors, yeah, there's a joy. Obviously, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
finished
Yeah.
it. There'll always be something where you're like, oh, I wish I did that bit different. But
Mm.
that's also part of the process. It's like it's all part of learning, and then you're always learning. So you learn so
Yeah.
much within that moment, and then you take it into the next time, and then again and then again.
These
Um,
these kind of these kind of shared experiences, if you want to call it that. Sometimes these phrases kind of get bandied around, don't they, with it, without having any meaning. But where either on tour, whether you're kind of in the studio, whether you're writing together, the music has this. It's almost a unique way of when you kind of when it works, just this way of building these kind of like very unique and long lasting bonds that you know they they're just kind of with you forever. Music's a weird thing like that.
yeah, very much so. And again, they're not necessarily forever. I mean,
Mm,
that's the other thing, but they mostly are. If you
mm,
get it right,
yeah,
you can. Let's take Alex Ward.
yeah,
I probably met him about 20 years ago, and we're still playing music. And at the moment, we're playing in like both playing in Thurston Moore group, obviously au pairs, as you know.
yeah,
We have our improv trio with Alan Wilkinson, which is great, and
mm,
we've got a Heckle Chamber with
yeah,
Roberto Sassi,
yeah,
just two guitars and drums, and that sort of continues a journey of what me and Alex used to do, which was a band called Dead Days Beyond Help,
mm,
which we had to say goodbye after COVID because it was so complicated to try and remember everything again after having not practiced enough because weren't allowed to, etc. But it's sort of we like, okay, well, we still want to do something like this, so
mm,
let's make it different.
mm,
Roberto was asking Alex to do something, so we started this. We're very happy, and it's different. It's its own beast. But you
mm,
have these relationships that are long lasting,
yeah,
and again, it's sort of that's one of the good things. It's as I say, also there's also loads of projects that have started and failed for various
yeah.
reasons, and they're disappointments. But I mean, I guess that's life, isn't it?
I
I
guess
guess
that's
that's
life, isn't
the
it?
same for any person in any job doing anything.
Yeah,
You do. I think you have to be open to new. You have to be open to things. Try stuff. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And some are more painful than others, but
which is
ultimately,
interesting. What you were saying earlier about like those artists that set these goals, these kind of big success goals.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it feels like, not prepared for failure. Like failure is not an option, but it's in every aspect of life that, you're going to meet failure at some stage,
Oh, it's really, yeah, it's very prevalent.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It's literally, yeah. And obviously, as you get older, you're a bit more able to sort of go, okay, fine, move on, let's go.
Sort of withstand it. Yeah.
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 And obviously, when you're a
Yeah.
bit younger, you think you're probably going to be the Beatles, you're going to take over the world, and
Yeah.
but that's when you're like 16, right? And
Yeah.
Stone, you're like, yeah, man, that never happened. It's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, the stone bit might have happened, but the success
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah. Oh no, no, never inhaled. Me and Bill, me and Bill.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, no, yeah, that's what it is. I think
Mm,
most people who do music or anything creative, or well, maybe other stuff as well, stuff I don't understand, but
mm.
the failure is very much a part of it, and yeah, how you navigate those things, you have, over time, the experience, you
Yeah.
get better experience at failure. But it's all part and parcel of it, isn't it? Really, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you
What
know.
was what was your kind of route into music? From when you were a kid, and also like I'm always interested because I often think, but from when I'm as I've got older, what sort of things that I remember from when I was a kid, sort of shaped me, like who I am today, what really kind of stuck with me, what affected me, so what was it like for you going back to when you were a kid?
Well, I mean, for me, it was actually really before I even sort of knew anything else. I mean, my mum basically, I mean, she says, I mean, jokingly says I came out with a holding two drumsticks and I had a clown's nose. I think she's telling me lies, but uh, you never know. I mean, I wasn't, there's no way I could tell really. But no, she basically says as soon as I could crawl, I found the pots and pans and I just started hitting
Yeah.
them with the wooden
Wow.
spoons, and then it kind of got to a point where I was doing that at my grandparents' place, or my dad's family,
Mm.
um, and breaking all the wooden spoons. And I do have a really early memory of like my grandmother saying, "These are Granny's special wooden spoons,
Yeah.
and these are ones you're allowed to use." And they were all the
Yeah.
ones that I'd already broken, and I was really upset because I wanted to use the new ones,
The new ones.
not
Yeah.
yeah the new special ones that should be being used for cooking. But no, she refused. And then yeah, so that is before, and they got me my first like shitty Fisher Price drum kit
Right. Oh
for
gosh, I remember those.
Christmas
Yeah.
in 1987. So I was 5. So I
Oh.
remember that previous sort of met like that whole thing about wooden
Mm,
spoons.
mm.
It's very vague, but like as far as I'm concerned, it did happen, and and like you just carry on from there. And I mean, there's this
Yeah.
picture of me with like at Christmas. Fuck knows why they dressed me up with a bow tie and a little sort of tank top and a shirt, and I was like behind this with very long
Magnificent.
hair and like with
Magnificent.
these holding these crappy yellow sort of Fisher Price drumsticks. Um, plastic, obviously, and and I sort of remember my brother trying to play the violin, and also we wanted to do I wanted to do a concert, and he played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star,
Yeah.
and then that's what we did, sort of a performance in front of grandparents and mum,
Oh, magnificent.
kind of thing, and yeah, and whoever else was there, who knows, can't remember, but yeah, no, I don't know. It's kind of always been there. I think
Mm,
that's the thing, and I think I've always been really stubborn about it as well. I mean, I've never studied it. I didn't do GCSE, didn't do A level, because I
mm.
kind of knew I was going to just do it. So unfortunately, I got kind of a false choice. I don't need to go into the details of it, but it's like, oh, you can only do art. By the way, this wasn't my mum. You can only do art or music. Uh,
Right. Okay.
and then so I chose art because I knew I was going to do music
You're going to do music
forever.
anyway,
Yeah,
sort of outside
and
that. Yeah.
that was it. So you sort of did
Yeah.
that. did the art schools thing, but like, and one day I hope to paint again. But I went to art school twice, and they told me not to paint, so I
Oh, did they?
got out of the habit really,
Oh, nice. That
which
was
is a bit
nice
of a
of them,
shame.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, but I'm sure they have their reasons. And
Gosh, how old were you then when that
well,
happened?
I did a foundation when I straight out of school because it was cheap.
Right.
If you cheaper if
Yeah.
you did it, it was like 80 quid,
Yeah.
something admin fees for the year, and then I went back on my own volition, sort of
Hmm.
when I was 26, to do a joint
Right.
honours art history thing. And yeah, I went there again with the intention to sort of paint, and kind of got into doing video art
Oh,
instead.
right. Right.
So it's kind of like, okay, I don't know if everyone has various different ideas as to why these things happen.
Yeah.
Some of them say it's all to do with money and space,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
rent, like being, fitting as more students into a room.
Yeah.
If everyone's sort of on a screen, you can fit in a couple more foreign
Yeah.
students, especially paying, what top dollar,
Yeah.
30 grand a year. I think the guys from Singapore were doing, which is
Mm.
pretty nuts. Um, but I think that was paid by their government. But it's
Mm.
still, that's where the universities can make their mony, right?
Made the money. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
If it's not funded by our government. Anyway, but that's that's
That's the
another
subject for
story.
the next album.
Yeah, education, huh? Um,
Education continually
uh,
fucked up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the music thing is always been there, uh, and I'm stubbornly going on, and
Mm.
despite kind of how hard it is. But as I say, I at the moment I'm playing all music I like, with people I like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like and love, because
Mm.
you love everyone really, and you have great time. It's
Yeah.
sort of, when it's going well, it's kind of the best, really.
And like the kind of the early bands or kind of so, I mean, sometimes it's just like a group of kids sort of getting together and starting playing and stuff like that. But what kind of as you got into kind of teens and stuff like that, and getting presumably sort of playing more and more, what kind of scenes were you kind of hanging out in and
Oh.
then getting into live scenes? Or maybe we can't talk about that. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I
one for the
don't know.
van.
Yeah, that might be one for the band. uh, it's a long time ago. My memory's hazy.
Yes.
But there's, yeah, just again, I don't, maybe seen less sceney. I don't think I've ever really
Mm,
been a sceney kind of person.
yeah.
I don't discredit sceney type people, by the way. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
But as I say, I've always been quite, uh, going from one thing to a different thing to another thing.
Yeah.
So, um,
Mm,
and trying to do them all at the same time. So, I mean, I don't think I just sort of am an outsider, but I just sort of, yeah, uh, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, teenager time was not like those kind of. I guess those kind of things weren't necessarily music led
music
as
lad. Yeah.
such. They weren't
Yeah.
necessarily, but yeah, there were other things going on. But then
Mm,
your my whole idea was, yeah, just keep playing, and
keep
hopefully
playing away.
you're doing things that are good. And obviously, I think I've always played with pretty cool.
Yeah,
Well,
for
not
sure.
always actually, but mostly played with
Mostly.
mostly played with pretty cool and interesting people.
Yeah.
Um, and that's obviously you start doing. I think my first band was probably when I was like 9 and 12. First
Wow, that's
one,
amazing. That's
sort of,
brilliant.
yeah. I mean, I don't think the 9-year-old band was like, like, I think we had, delusions of grandeur in spades,
Yeah.
but it was sort of, yeah. The 12-year-old one was a bit more, like, with a little bit more substance.
Mm.
And I'm actually still really good friends with that guy. We've known each other since we were 8. He wasn't in a 9-year-old band, but he was in the
Got together
12-year-old
for the
band,
yeah.
and we're still
Yeah, he had to
mates.
he had to
So
go home for his tea when you were
yeah,
forming
yeah,
that
exactly.
band.
That's that's the kind of vibe. So yeah. Yeah, we used to have an argument about whether the Beatles or Elvis were better. Which of them was the better one?
Yeah,
But that gave us a nice sort of rivalry within the band,
yeah.
sort of make some music. Um,
What sort of stuff were you listening to?
yeah, I mean, obviously the Beatles and Elvis, but I think that's really good as you're 12 years old. I think you're sort of there's a lot in there,
Mm,
melodically, rhythmically, and it's sort of and there can be some slightly more weirder
yeah.
pieces. I mean, I was sort of around that age and sort of quite obsessed with the White Album, and
Yes.
uh, and I think at that time I don't think there's any more, but
Yeah.
at that time I thought they that there was nothing wrong at all with the White Album. There was no
Yeah.
bad song,
Yeah.
which I definitely don't agree with I don't agree with my 12-year-old self. And I think these things are funny in a way, but it's all part of your journey, isn't it? It's all part of your
Yeah.
experiences.
I mean, I always think back, to myself, like when I was a kid, gosh, I was, I mean, before I found the Ramones, and it was, I mean, as with a lot of kind of like white blokes of my age, it was the Ramones, right? But so it's a little bit of a cliche, but it honestly was. My next door neighbor lent me this compilation album, and as it turns out, I think it was just called New Wave, and it was a red cover, and it had a picture of a guy spitting beer on he had a beer can who's spitting beer. And as it turns out, when I moved to London at the end of 2008, I moved to Gunnersbury, and I used to go drinking in Chiswick,
Yeah,
and met a guy, and said, oh, I first got into Ramones, blah blah blah. I told him the story because on that compilation album was Judy as a Punk, right? And he says, "Oh, do you know who that is on the front album on the front cover?" And I was like, "No idea." And he said it was me. I was like, "Oh my God, you're kidding?" He said, "No, that was the younger me. It was Derek Gibbs. He was in a band called the
wow,
Satellites from sort of back in the day." But it was funny. So I often think back as to to that record because I was listening to all sorts of stuff beforehand, kind of like knockoff top of the pops compilations and all
oh
this
wow,
sort of stuff that were I was say like talking about touring with the Skids. One of the compilation albums had "Working for the Yankee Dollar" by the Skids,
yeah,
and it was a rip off. It was like a studio band that did their version of it. They were so tacky. You used to be able to get them in Woolworths. So I was listening to that sort of stuff, and then the Ramones came along. But I always wonder why I was attracted to that sort of music. And maybe I get a bit philosophical about these things. Never get too philosophical, but I was wondering why was I drawn to punk rock and not to as much to say I don't know soul or disco. Why was it punk rock music? And it was that was what really changed my life. It's weird
yeah. Do
how
you
you get drawn.
understand? I mean, you can sort
I
of you understand the moment, but do you know
Yeah.
why?
I think
What it is that pulls you in?
I mean I played the cello, so I was classically trained, and I think that, I didn't, I hated the regimented side of it. I didn't like, I never felt like it was my own. So I became resentful of it, and I wanted to break out of it, and I can't. And I think that it was the rebellious thing of punk rock that attracted me. I
Yeah,
think it was literally that because musically you can't get much more opposite.
yeah.
But then I found it was interestingly I found I was really into like bands like OMD who in a way kind of bridged that gap between classical and the rock music world, if that makes sense, because
Yeah. No,
they were
that's
very kind of
yeah.
like orchestral and kind of classical in their compositions, and that acted as a bridge for me in some way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it was possibly the sort of the rebellious like me trying to get away, but never having the balls to do it.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I mean, I definitely appreciate the fuck you in music. I think that's really important, whether that's
Mm,
Miles Davis, Dylan, or Neil
yeah,
Young, or
yeah,
it's sort of I I think those things are really important, and they're sort of in a way they're unquantifiable, really, aren't they? I
Yeah,
mean, I don't, I still love listening to basically mid 70s Miles Davis, and
yeah,
whereas I don't love listening to the Beatles anymore. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And but I think
yeah.
there is something where I'm like, bang, there's that energy in it, which
Mm,
I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere or millions of people have tried to write thesis, and they've
mm,
been vaguely successful in it, but I bet you they can't really say what it is, like on the money, saying why that what that
yeah,
energy actually is, and
yeah.
that's what's such a driving factor, uh, and yeah, and you know how that then
It,
permeates you, and then you're like, yes,
yeah,
that's it.
that's the
I
one.
think
Yeah.
you know, um, but
What
I
do you?
think it is necessary to have that because I think like otherwise we're in this really uncritical world
Hmm.
ultimately, aren't we? And it's sort of like, oh yeah, okay, this is the thing. Whether it's okay, we can't let's not name people, whether it's ex superstar. And you're like, I mean, and you listen to some of this music, I wouldn't even call it music. Like,
Yeah.
you're just like, what is it? It's nothing. And it's there. You're like, you're in a cab, and it's just bullshit music. Like, not even music. Bullshit, not even music.
Yeah.
And it's not saying anything. And just like, why does this exist?
Yeah.
Personally, I don't get it. And they're just there trying,
Yeah.
they're these unfine, they can accept this, and they're being successful in whichever way they are. All
Yeah.
credit to them, all power to them. But it's yeah, I mean, it's also bollocks, isn't
Mm. It's,
it?
not
It's
put
like,
too fine a word on it. It basically is.
it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, okay, is that sort of live evil standard of music? No, it's not live evil standard of music. It's nowhere near. Or it's not
Yeah.
funkadelic, which is absolutely, or P funk. It just
Mm.
rips the shit out of everything and is critical in a funny way.
Yeah.
Like really cynical, but in a great sort of sardonic kind of way. And I think those things are really important for society.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have the situation where there's a bunch of people in the White House incredibly self-satisfied and on some sort of crusade,
Yeah.
ultimately taking themselves incredibly seriously. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people just like go, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Just
But that
accepting it.
ultimately, that's what's going on. Everyone just sort of accepts what's going on. I mean, I know we can't do anything, right? Like,
But
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 it's sort
you
of
can.
yeah,
But it's interesting, isn't it, about again, what the I don't know what the right word is. What the power of music is.
yeah.
By there's always been that kind of like rebellion, hasn't there, I guess. And
Yeah,
it still brings people together, and it's still important to keep doing that. There is this, again,
100%.
this kind of catharsis in music, or whatever your kind of creative outlet is, whether it's writing, whether it's painting, drawing, whatever. you know you can still change this idea of change. I think sometimes is a difficult one because it's not always tangible. It's not always tangible to measure. And sometimes we like to kind of like think, oh, what impact have we had with our creativity? But it's important to keep doing it, if not for anything else other than like kind of like our own sanity and
Yeah.
an
Well,
outlet.
well, yeah. I mean, and I think that's increasingly important with the onset of AI, which is
Yes.
basically saying we've solved music
Yeah.
or the arts or anything
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
Um, Novel writing machines in
Uh,
1984 were
yeah.
predicted. I mean, it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's pretty. I mean, it's mad
It's so spooky. Yeah.
what he predicted and all these kind of things. But I ultimately you're saying we've solved everything, and what you need to do is kind of, well, we can't give you the jobs because we're going to automate everything, but basically
Mm.
just sit and do nothing and be miserable and angry.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
actually creating a situation where, as you say, you can bring people together, and live music is a really good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Get a bunch of people in a room. They probably don't want that to happen, right? Because you might incite, in inverted commas. But
Yeah.
it's sort of, I mean, I'm not saying everything has to be political, because it doesn't. It can just have a nice time. But
Mm.
it's just I that idea is fast. I mean, maybe it's not fast becoming, but you could imagine that it becomes sort of seen as a danger, or
Yeah.
a thing. So I think it's definitely important to
I think
have like well, certainly live music. And it's I mean, that's one of the best parts of music, isn't it? It's live. It's actually
yeah,
going to an event and experiencing it.
absolutely.
Um,
And
and
I think the
seeing
what
people play,
yeah.
actually play. you know,
I mean this I
it's
mean it is I remember thinking, kind of during COVID when, there was so little help for the arts, and there was sort of, venues closing, musicians saying, "Oh, this is impossible," and you didn't, there was uncertainties whether there was going to be any sort of live music. It really did feel kind of catastrophic.
yeah,
And I remember at the time just sort of thinking, "Fuck, can you imagine like a world where you can't go and see live music?" Because it
yeah,
was like quite dark to, because nobody knew what the fuck was going on.
no,
And you think, all right, can you imagine never being able to go and see a live show again?
depressing as hell.
I was like, Jesus Christ, that was like, it was so
Yeah,
scary. But I think the thing about control is it's an interesting one, because I think that, like, instinct as well, that's what they can't control, and that's, it's like kind of inherent in all of us. And I think you see this kind of like particularly sort of instinct in live music where, and I love it, like in live setting where there's, like a band sort of fucks up or something like that, and you play a duff note or play a duff beat, and stuff like that, because that kind of shows the humanity in
yeah,
the in the people.
yeah. I mean, as a musician, you don't really want to make mistakes, but I do appreciate it. Well, especially when you're live. I mean, that's why, I guess we practice. But all the hours that go
Yeah, it's
into that,
interesting, the
it's sort
punter's
of,
perspective and the musician's
yeah.
perspective. Yeah.
But I know you were there the other day when we had a full start for, I can't remember which tune, but while we are doing our pairs, and we talked about it afterwards, because you sent me that transcript of another interview podcasting you did.
Oh yeah.
And you said you like those kind of moments. I was like, oh, I guess you like
Yeah. I do. I
you
loved it.
liked our
Yeah, that
full
was it.
start the other
Yeah, that
class.
made my night. Everybody's
Um,
applauding. It's brilliant.
yeah, it's true. It's true. They did applaud, and it is. I guess. Yeah, I think you're right. I think to a certain degree, but also at the same time, I'd rather not do a
You'd
full
rather
stop.
not do, yeah, of
But
course,
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
also I've definitely got to the point where it's just like, okay, it's not. I mean, of course, it can happen.
yeah.
It's not like it's. But the human. I mean, I've got a good friend who she runs, or is part of quite a big part of the studio. Um, and she was sort of saying that with the onset of AI, the kids, I mean, she's well placed to know about the kids being, 20 young
Mm,
adults, I guess.
mm,
Um, there's going to be that she feels there's going to be some sort of backlash where they actually want to see people playing their instruments rather
mm,
than, and obviously it's always been faked, like pop, especially pop music.
yeah,
And so it's not anything new. It's just the tools have changed, right?
yeah,
But I think but then, even, whether you do the perfect take, re-record over and over and over again, it's not, I make sure it's there as a recording. Um, that's happened for obviously a long time.
mm,
But now the idea that you just get a computer to go, you type in, can it sound like X and Y mashed together, and then it just does the music for you. I guess it's a bit of a game changer. So
yeah,
as a response to that, I mean, I get hope there's a hoped for response, which is maybe live music becomes even more sort of necessary, and people
yeah,
are actually going to go because they want to see people actually play their instruments and do something
yeah,
rather than a fake. And obviously, you can have those artists which really rely on backing tracks, and that's been going on for ages, and
Yeah.
you get the musicians up on the stage and they're only hitting 2 and 4 on a pad,
Yeah.
and a little bit of a keyboard thing, which is actually controlled by the MD across the other side of the stage, and all the
Yeah.
potential sort of like parameters with a little knob here, a little knob there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of bullshit. It's like the verisimilitude of the live performance,
Mm.
and actually, I mean, people buy it. All
Yeah.
power to the people who sort of seem to make money out of those kind of things. But I mean, I'd like to think there's a world where you're not always trying to con people. But then,
Yeah.
what are those? There's those old films. Is it Singing in the Rain,
Yeah.
where the singer
Yeah.
is actually behind the curtain? I think my brother was
Yeah.
telling me that actually, but then actually, it's a different singer actually singing it from the actor who's acting the person singing. It's like gone weird sort of like crazy thing. So it's not like these things haven't happened, but I think there's something about the computer doing it which
Mm.
does alter it a little
Yeah.
bit more. Um,
I
yeah,
wonder if that's sort of connected in some way to, I don't know, in some ways, kind of like feeling, people feeling more isolated and that they need to feel, that music is a way to feel that that music provides that kind of relatability for them. That they can be amongst people and be among. I don't know. Sometimes that sort of physicality, because we have become more reclusive
yeah,
generally as a society, and I think particularly kind of younger people have felt that.
yeah,
For not just through technology, but just that, because like cost of living is so much. So go back to when something when I was a kid. Kind of going to the pub was like that was like a given. And it doesn't have to be the pub, but there were social outlets that were certainly more affordable than they feel that they are
well,
now.
yeah. You go out for a tenner for a whole night,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah. And I just wonder if music, live music, if there's people are feeling that they need to see people playing, it kind of gives that feeling of, okay, here are people actually tangibly doing something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I mean,
Mm. Well,
I
yeah.
mean, I'd like to,
Otherwise, just cancel all the gigs. Yeah.
yeah, basically, don't bother. um, yeah, I mean, and I think that's it. I mean, maybe there'll be a situation where something a bit more raw stuff
Yeah.
is sort of acceptable again,
Yeah.
as well. It's still great for me. I think it's great, two guitars, bass, and drums.
Yeah.
Like, and some
Yeah.
vocals thrown in, but like that's it's a killer lineup,
Yeah.
and I don't
Yeah.
think it doesn't get old. I think it works. And maybe I sound old, but it doesn't need to have all this extra stuff, which
Yeah.
is not even being played by anyone on the stage. Do you know what I mean? It's sort
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
really
Totally.
understand. Personally, I don't really. I mean, I get the spectacle, the show.
Yeah.
I think you can use that technology in ways that are kind of cool, and certainly have done little things. But like, it doesn't need to always be this sort of like
Yeah.
the fidelity to the record. Do you know
Kind of
what I mean?
curated and perfectly
Yeah,
curated and
yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Bit of edge.
It kind
Bit
of,
of edge is
yes.
good,
Yeah. This is it. Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think when you think back to the moments that you remember, whether it's kind of music or just kind of stuff that happens, but those bits that are a little bit edgy that you remember,
yeah,
where there's just like that bit of, whether it's fear or just kind of like, okay, there's a little bit of danger, kind of like that's the stuff we remember.
yeah. I mean, I definitely, I remember being a young teenager just bouncing around my room, just like
Yeah,
listening to various different albums,
yeah,
and just getting so excited by it. And
yeah.
that was great. And then you take it around to your friend's house, and then you'd both be jumping around your room, around the room.
Yes.
It's like, man, you gotta listen to this, like some shitty hi-fi, and sort of like put me on cassette. And yeah, sort of that's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it is the edge. It's not like, okay, the super polished thing.
yeah.
Like, I mean, not that it's necessarily always wrong, the super polished stuff. You can have polished and not polished, and it's all allowable.
Yes, I mean you can have polished and still edgy. I think.
Yeah, polished and edgy.
I think you can do. But yeah, again, there was certainly like a feeling when I was kind of growing up of because basically there was me and my other mate at school who I was, and we really like our musical tastes were kind of like that. I mean, apart from a few, but he introduced me to the Fall, for example, like in
Right.
I don't know, like sort of early '80s or something like that, and he was just like mad for the Fall completely. And then kind of like getting into like Neubauten and kind of Swans and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and literally being the only kids in the school that have not only liked them but had ever heard of them. And that sort of feeling of being a little bit on the edge, like everybody else was kind of listening to, I don't know, like Simple Minds and
Oh wow. Yeah, it's quite different.
stuff like that. It was quite different. You never used to get much kind of space at parties.
Yeah.
Put on the latest Swans
Yeah.
bestseller. But it's funny,
I'd like that party.
it was. I thought it was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jem, it's been brilliant to talk to you, man. Brilliant
Yeah,
to talk
thank you, George. Good to talk.
Thanks so much.